Hello, thank you for listening to A Glimpse of the Kingdom. I'm David Pendergrass. I listen to debates oftentimes on YouTube and presentations, and I was listening to some old debates, and I did a podcast recently called A Stupid Demand of the Atheist Concerning the Gospels, and I hope you'll listen to it on the podcast. Go to A Glimpse of the Kingdom on iTunes, or you can go to my website, davidpendergrass.com, and I have instructions on how to find it, but it's A Glimpse of the Kingdom. Download any kind of podcast software you want or app, and then you can find it, A Glimpse of the Kingdom, and you can listen to the other podcasts I've done. But I want you to listen to the gospel one I did as well. And something very, very common that atheists and skeptics and so forth demand, or that misunderstanding they have, is concerning morality. And it's one of those things that can drive me crazy because it's such an obvious thing, but because they seem to be so, maybe not all of them, but so many times they seem to be so adamant that the Christian just can't, or the theist, can't be right about anything. They can't be right about this, and it's morality. Look, here's the deal. If we are just evolved primates, and there is no creator God who created the moral law, then there is no such thing as objective moral values. This is what Richard Dawkins and many other atheists believe. This is what Richard Dawkins says in his book, River Out of Eden, A Darwinian View of Life. He says, quote, "The universe that we observe has precisely the properties we should expect if there is at bottom no design, no purpose, no evil, no good, nothing but pitiless indifference." End quote. That is precisely what Dawkins and many other atheists believe. There is no such thing as objective morality. Objective means it is true regardless of what society says. It is not a subjective fact. It is an objective fact. There are many other atheists, however, that do believe in objective moral values, and they would say, and we just don't know where they come from, or that it comes from evolution and so forth. This is profoundly confusing for them. Here's the deal. If objective morality exists, and it does, it must be grounded in something that is not subjective. Let me say a little bit about that. How do we know that objective moral values and duties exist? A value is something like honesty, preserving human life, being kind. These are values. A duty is what I should do in the moment. And you can pick from different values to apply in a situation. Different values to apply. In the moment, the value you apply at that moment, we call that the duty, a moral duty. Moral duties are commandments. They feel, because they are, commandments. You ought to do the right thing. You ought to help that person. You ought to tell the truth and not lie. You ought, you should. That's a commandment. That's a law. That's a moral commandment, a moral law. Why is it that virtually all humans, and certainly almost all societies on the planet, have the basic similar kinds of moral values and duties? Why is it that we assume some things are just wrong and other things are just right? If you are nothing but a naturalist or an atheist, if you believe nothing exists but matter and energy, and we're nothing but evolved primates, then you cannot believe in objective moral values without being a hypocrite. You can't. Because if we're evolved primates, there's nothing objective about raping. There's nothing objectively wrong about raping. There's nothing objectively good about preserving children from being raped. It's just what society says. So this is what happens if you're being consistent. You must do this. If you're consistent and you're a naturalist, you're not a theist, you're just, we're evolved primates on a speck of dust in an unimaginably large universe. What you call morality is really just etiquette. It's just etiquette. Now, think for a second. What's the difference between morality and etiquette? Etiquette are social conventions determined by the culture. That's it. It's etiquette to bow if you're Japanese. It's etiquette to shake hands if you're American. It's etiquette. Etiquette is determined by social maybe in economic, educational, all kinds of but it's cultural. It's culturally conditioned. It is subjective. It depends on the society. But the reason why people bow and the reason why people shake hands is they're trying to demonstrate a morally objectively good thing, and that is honor or respect. Because all the cultures concur that it is good, not just preference, but good to show honor. We just disagree on how to express the honor. If you're an atheist, you must believe that everything we call morality is nothing but etiquette. It violates society's etiquette to rape people. It's unfashionable to do so, much like farting or burping is. It's unfashionable. You're breaking cultural etiquette to rape people, to torture children, to rob people. There's nothing wrong with it. You're just breaking etiquette because our society has happened to define it that way. Now, let me ask you a quick question. Is that really all it is? Why is it that almost everyone says that no, it's not just bad etiquette to rape people or torture children? It's bad to do that. It's wrong to murder Jews because you think they're not human or the demons or whatever stupid thing Nazi says. They said. That's wrong. They didn't break etiquette. It was the etiquette of Nazi Germany. Not all Germans concurred with it, I know that. But it was largely the view of a huge portion of Germans at the time. It was etiquette. You were following etiquette to badmouth Jews, to not go to their shops, to make fun of them, to draw them as demons and artwork for a whole generation or more. It was etiquette to do that. But it was wrong. When the people went to the Nuremberg trials and said we were only following our Nazi commanders' orders, they said that the laws that they were given, commandments from superiors, we were following the commandments. The jury, basically, the judges said there is a moral law above your superiors. Well, they're right. But you could not have argued that on atheism. There is no moral law above that. We're just chimps. We're evolved primates. And there's nothing wrong with following your primate urges if you're just a primate. And if you say, David, that's ridiculous. It's not ridiculous, because my question is going to be, why? Why is it ridiculous to say that? On what grounds, what moral grounds could you tell me it's wrong to commit genocide? You can't, and if you say, well, because we all agree. No. Why is it wrong to do it? Why is it wrong to do it? Not, why do you think you don't like it? Not, why is it against etiquette? Not why is my society against it? Because the Germans could have won. They could have taken over Europe. And guess what? It would have still been wrong to murder all those people. It is irrelevant who holds the power. It is irrelevant if you took a big fat vote. It is immoral to do that. But if you're evolved primates, who's to say? And that's the problem. That's the confusion that so many atheists, and I've seen so many debates, like I said, on YouTube and other places online, that they just simply cannot get. For something to be objective, and how do you know it's objective? Because everyone knows it's objective. It's intuitively right and true. I know from my intuition, my experience, that reality really exists. I'm sitting in a chair. I know I'm sitting in a chair. I don't think I'm sitting in a chair. I don't believe I'm sitting in a chair. I'm not kind of convinced. I know I'm sitting in a chair. Now, is it possible that I'm wrong? Of course it's possible. I could be hooked up to an alien ship with tubes in my brain and whatever, but that's just stupid. I know I'm sitting in a chair. It's real. And the exact same way that I know it's real and I know reality exists and I know the past exists, and I know the future is going to exist. In the same way, I know that moral values and duties exist. I just know it's wrong. It's a brute fact. You don't rape people. It's wrong to do so. It's not wrong because my parents told me. It's just wrong. And Christians, or rather theists, Jews, Muslims, and Christians, but I'll say for the Christian, we know why it is objectively wrong to do so. Because we have commandments. We have laws. We have a lawgiver. A legislator. The legislator, the lawgiver, we call that figure God. God is outside of the stream of change, like the river of change of, even if you're an evolutionist, that change and change, it goes on all the time. Why is it throughout the generations that certain moral values and duties have always been right and other ones have been wrong? Through all the change and all the different cultures, why is that? And if you think it was wrong that the Nazis murdered all those people, I'm going to ask you, what gives you the right to judge them? If you're an atheist and you say, well, it's because I think it's because that's what my parents taught me. Well, that doesn't mean it's wrong. That's just breaking etiquette. Just wait for a little bit. What if it means if you had different parents, if you were German parents, Nazi German parents in the 40s, they would have disagreed with what your parents now say. And they would say, no, it's completely right to do that. And you just have to go along with them. And they would have been wrong. It's wrong to do so. Another thing that's really confusing for a lot of people is there's a difference between what we call moral ontology. Ontos in Greek means being or existence. Ontology is a heady philosophical thing. It means you study existence and what it means to exist. Ontology. Moral ontology means how is it grounded? What is it grounded in to make it objective? Moral epistemology means how we know something is different. For example, I might come to know, I might learn that something is morally wrong because my parents told me. It doesn't mean it's subjective. It doesn't mean it's relative. It just means my parents taught me. And almost everybody I've ever heard who's not right has gotten this wrong. They think that if you can trace where someone learned morality, it means that morality itself is all relative. Well, that's absurd. They're confusing moral epistemology with moral ontology. It's not relative just because they were taught it. And secondly, this also comes up in debates all the time, why is it so many people disagree on it? They don't disagree much on moral values at all. And the ones that do disagree on moral values, we have a term for them. It's in the DSM-4 and 5 and 1, 2, 3. They're sociopaths or psychopaths. We have a term for these people. They have a disorder, a serious disorder. And they're the policeman's worst nightmare because they don't care about morality. There's a term for people who don't think the normal average moral values and duties are in fact moral and should be obliged. Those people have serious problems. And atheists don't see it, usually. Usually, in my experience and watching and reading and so forth, they just think, no. You can do both. You can not believe in moral objective values and both do it, and it's okay, and it's wrong to kill, but it's not. It's just confusing. It's so stinking confusing because it is wrong. The deal is, we have every reason to trust that moral values and duties really are real. They really are, like you really can trust that you exist, and you can trust the past existed and the future's coming and whatever. You can trust that. You can trust it because you have no reason to defeat it. There's no reason to think it's not real. You have every reason to think it's true. Secondly, if it really is true that it's wrong to do certain things, even one thing, if one thing is objectively wrong, that is I don't care what you say, how much power you have, how many PhDs you have, where your parents came from, it just is wrong. If even one thing is wrong objectively, it means I'm appealing to something beyond us both to say, it's wrong. I'm appealing to something beyond humanity. I'm appealing to it that says it tells me that it is wrong. And I wonder where I get this notion of something is wrong or something is right. Where do I get that notion? Here's an analogy. When an atheist claims that Christians or theists can't believe in objective morality because people disagree with it or because it was taught and all this stuff, forget morality. Forget morality. Put in something else, mathematics. Now, how stupid would it be? Because it is stupid to say, I'll just pretend for a second. I come up and say, hey, you know what? I found this new thing. Come to find out there are millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of people around the globe, Timmy. They found this thing called mathematics. And did you know when you put two and two together, it has this thing called fourness. There's a quality that we can use that and we start making equations and so forth. And then I say, what? Well, I've heard of that. No, but I've heard of that. But that's just stupid. We know mathematics can't be trusted. And I say, why is that? They said, because they learn that at school, idiot. They learn that from their parents. Why would you trust that? We all know where that came from. We all know where they learned it. They learned it from their teachers, from their parents, from someone else. And since I can tell you where they learned it, mathematics is false. Mathematics is not objectively right. It's not objectively true. It's just a subjective preference. Depends on the society, really. Because I can tell you where it came from. And I go, what? That's stupid. Just because my parents and my teacher taught me 2 plus 2 equals 4 doesn't mean 4 is just a free-for-all. It doesn't mean some cultures it's 5, and then the skeptic, the mathematical skeptic goes, yes, it does. I have met many people who think 2 plus 2 equals other things. Some say it equals 5. Some say it equals a horse. Some say it equals a star. And I'm going to look at the person, this mathematical skeptic, and say, then they're wrong. I don't care if you met 1 billion people. If 5 billion people lined up and said 2 plus 2 equals 5, they're wrong. But David, they're passionate. Then they're passionately wrong. But David, their parents told them that. Then the parents are wrong too. This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. It doesn't matter. You don't take a vote on mathematics. It is 4. David, what makes you so sure of that? Because it's so self-evidently true. It's so self-evidently true. David, your parents told you that. That's where it comes from. See, the problem is, David, you want it to be true because your parents thought it was true. And because you just want mathematics to be true. You know, it fills a void in you. There's a mathematical shaped hole in your heart, and that's exactly why you want to believe it. And if you were like me and you were really, really open-minded, you would listen to all the other people who can't understand mathematics and say, see, it's make-believe, it's relative. Why trust it? Mathematics is just like etiquette. It's just socially conditioned. Now, everybody knows how stupid that would be. I mean, give me a break. It's exactly that way with morality. And yes, it is just that way with morality. See, we've come so far from the 1960s and deconstructionalism, which led to relativism. We don't even talk that way anymore. We don't even talk that way anymore. You can't believe in the public square and moral objectives because you're a bigot. You're judgmental. We all know everyone gets to decide. Every culture gets to decide for their own and blah, blah, blah. And that they're wrong. They're just wrong. I don't care what you say. There are objective moral values and duties that exist. It is always going to be wrong to rape, to pillage, to steal. It's just wrong. It's right to tell the truth. It's right to be kind. Now, the moral duty in the moment would determine whether or not you apply certain values over other values. But it doesn't change the fact that it's objective. And I don't care where I learned it from. I don't care if people disagree with me on how to apply the value. We cannot confuse moral values and duties with etiquette. We must think of morality like mathematics. And if you're a Christian listening to this, I encourage you, the next time you ever talk to a person who's confused about this, help them. Help them see the difference between a grounding of morality, grounded in something beyond us all, or to something to which we're all appealing, versus how we come to know it. And then use the analogy of mathematics. And they'll say, it's different. It's different morality. The next question is going to be, why? Why is it different? Why is it different with morality? Well, it just is. No, that can't work. You can't say it just is. Why is it almost all societies in the history of the planet would concur with moral values and duties? Well, David, that's not true because over time, even in Christianity or Judaism, things changed over time. I want to say, fine, moral development happens. Guess what? We learn a lot about mathematics every day. I don't. I'm not a mathematician. That's not my great strength. But I know mathematicians. They learn stuff all the time. All the time they're learning it. Well, why can't we learn about what is objectively moral? Why can't we learn that? Why can't over centuries we learn more and more? You know what? That is right. That is wrong. Why can't there be moral development without it being a free-for-all, all relative and etiquette? That's just nonsense. We don't do it with mathematics. Okay, well, enough of that debate. If you listen this far, God bless you for listening to my rant. There is a profound difference between moral values and etiquette. So if you're a Christian, and if you're confusing the situation, knock it off, all right? Let's get some clarity on this issue. It's okay to say there are such things as objective moral values and duties. Now, the question is, if there are objective moral values and duties, why do we have that? Why is it Asians and Alaskans and Cubans and South Americans and people don't even speak the same language can say, you're right. They all meet in the meeting for the first time and shake hands and go, list all your moral values and duties and list them all out. Why is it the list would look identical? Why is that? Where does that come from? It can't be evolution. It can't be social etiquette. It can't just be that. We might have learned it over time, but it can't be the grounding of it because that means it comes from us. It can't come from us because if it comes from us, then it's not objective. It's just a social convention. It's just etiquette. If it comes from us, then we can't say the Germans were wrong. The Nazis were wrong, rather. We can't say that because we just say, well, that's just where they were in evolution. No, that's not where they were in evolution. It was wrong to do it. They weren't just evolving. They were wrong. So it cannot be grounded in evolution. We might have learned it over time, but it cannot be wrong or right or grounded based on evolutionary, because that means at no time is anything moral, good, or bad. Right now in 2015, when I'm recording this, that means in 2016, we might say, nope, David thought it was right, but it's all evolved since then. No, nonsense. It's wrong now to rape. It's going to be wrong now when I die on my deathbed. It's going to be wrong to rape. It's going to be wrong to rape in 500 years. It's forever. You see my point. No matter how much the human body changes, it will be wrong. Now, why is it the moral values and duties have not evolved? We might have learned. We might have added to the list. But at no time in the history of the world has it been a good thing to murder, a good thing to rape, a good thing to do it on its own. It's objective, like mathematics. 2 plus 2 didn't equal 7 a long time ago, and now we all agree it's 4 because we've evolved. That's stupid. It's always been 4. Okay, you see the point, I hope, by now. God bless you. Let's keep being ethical and thinking clearly about these issues. See you next time. Thank you so much for listening to A Glimpse of the Kingdom. If you want to listen to more, go to my website, davidpendergrass.com, and look at one of the tabs that says podcast. If you click that, it'll take you straight to my podcast on iTunes, or you can search for it on iTunes if you want to, A Glimpse of the Kingdom. But also on my website, you'll see another way to get, if you're an Android listener on your phone or you just don't use Mac computers. Again, davidpendergrass.com, and click podcast. It'll take you exactly where you need to go, and you can subscribe from there and get this as often as you like, and also see my blogs and so forth. If you want to get me to come to your organization or church, otherwise to do some consulting, you need to go to davidpendergrassconsulting.com. davidpendergrassconsulting.com. You'll see the information there. If you want to reach out to me on Twitter, you can find me at Dr. D. Pendergrass, at Dr. D. Pendergrass.